I'm going to welcome Alice up. It's the single whoop Sunday today, isn't it?
No, just points behind us. Just one whoop.
There you go. Father God, we thank you for Alice. We thank you for the time that she's put into preparing this message that you put on her heart to share with us. So we just pray now, as she shares it, you'd fill her with your spirit, you'd speak through her. And I pray for us that you would give us open hearts and ears to what you have to say through her. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, guys. So yeah, I'm sort of speaking on the latest of our Easter series. So this is Jesus basically is kind of headed towards Jerusalem. So the passage of today, so the title I was given was Farewell. And I read, hang on, let me just see that again. So yeah, so and I read it and I was like, oh my word, it's actually talking. Jesus is talking about his own death. And Lord, are you wanting me to speak about death and dying? So I was trying to kind of think of a way around it, because it's not actually, apart from at funerals, it's not something that actually you normally hear on a Sunday, is it? That we actually talk about dying and death. And I'm really aware, obviously it's a really sensitive subject, and that there may be people here who have a loved one who is coming to the end of their earthly life. And so if you do need to take a pause for a moment and need to step outside, then please feel free to do that. I'm not going to dwell on it overly, but because actually we're going to be looking at how Jesus looks at his own death and actually find some really encouraging words from that. But obviously it's not. So a special apologies to Mary, to the two Marys, because when at lunchbox I said on Friday, I said, I'm talking on Sunday. What I didn't tell them was what the subject matter was, so I feel a bit bad, but hopefully it won't be too bad. So I very recently went to a memorial service for a very good friend of my parents, and I went with my sister, and it was lovely because both my parents have died. So my mum died in, my dad died in 2012, and my mum died in 2016. And actually felt really important to be there, just because of it was kind of they were very good friends of my mum and dad, and actually it was really important for my sister and I to kind of to be there and to kind of be like in loco parentis, really. We were sort of kind of there as my parents, as our family's representative, and it was really amazing. And I was there when my brother-in-law died when he was only 40, so that was probably about 10, 12 years ago, and that still makes me cry. Because my sister, it was her long-term partner, and so I do know a little bit about death. So it's not speaking from a place of not knowing anything about it at all. And I'm actually really grateful that both my parents had a really good death. So my dad, who loved playing golf, was playing golf on the Thursday, died on the Sunday. I mean, for him that was like a pathway to heaven. And actually my mum had cancer, but we all had Christmas together, all of us together, and then she died on the 27th. She was kind of hanging on for Christmas. So that was really special as well, and she was at home. So I feel really grateful for that. But I think it's really interesting to kind of see how Jesus looks at his own death. Well, yes it is. Hopefully that's big enough for you to see. Yeah. So we're going to read this together. So this is John 14. Don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God and trust also in me. There is more than enough room in my Father's home. If this were not so, would I not have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you? When everything is ready, I will come and get you, so that you will always be with me where I am. And you know the way to where I'm going. No, we don't know, Lord, Thomas said. We have no idea where you're going, so how can we know the way? Jesus told him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. If you had really known me, you would know who my Father is. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Philip said, Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied. Jesus replied, have I been with you all this time, Philip, and yet you still don't know who I am? Anyone who's seen me has seen the Father. So why are you asking me to show him to you? Don't you believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words I speak are not my own, but but my Father who lives in me does his work through me. Just believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me, or at least believe because of the work you've seen me do. I tell you the truth, anyone who believes in me will do the same works I've done, and even greater works, because I'm going to be with the Father. You can ask for anything in my name, and I will do it, so that the Son can bring glory to the Father. Yes, ask me for anything in my name, and I will do it. So, isn't that, there's so much in that passage in there, such a rich passage. And so I just thought, I thought I'm just going to go a little bit back, because at the very beginning, and he says, Jesus says, there's more than enough room in my Father's home. If this were not so, would I not have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you? This has got special resonance for me, because just over the last couple of days, Chris and I were watching a film called Harriet, which is all about the story of Harriet Tubman, who was an amazing woman. She was a slave in the 1840s, and she ran away from the plantation where she was enslaved. And then she became what they called a conductor on the Underground Railroad, helping to free slaves. And she actually went back down, so she managed to find, she walked 100 miles to freedom on her own. She managed to kind of evade slave catchers and kind of made her way to Philadelphia. And then she felt so passionate about it that she went back down south to kind of rescue other people. Anyway, she lived to the right point. The story is amazing. So if you watch the film, it's called Harriet. But one of the things she said, she died aged 91, and her final words were, "I'm going to prepare a place for you." Because actually that's what she'd done for all the slaves who she'd rescued. So she, in her lifetime, she rescued 70 slaves. But she was kind of like a pioneer. She kind of prepared a place for them in Philadelphia, a place of safety. So she was a remarkable woman. And that's what Jesus is doing for us too. He's preparing a place for us, and he does it with complete confidence. He has probably only got a few days before he's going to die, and he knows it's coming. Actually, most of us, probably very fortunately, don't know when we're going to die, because I think actually we would be consumed with anxiety and fear. But actually, Jesus did. He said just in the previous chapter, my hour has come. He knew what was about to happen to him. And but he manages to look forward with complete confidence. And completely unlike his disciples who in the passage were like, "Where are you going, Lord?" It's almost like quite comical. He's talking about these deep spiritual things, and they're like, "Where are you going? You're going off to Corinth? Or, you're going down the local village." It's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to a different place. I'm going to be with my Father. But they just don't get it at all. Show us the Father. The fact that he is able to look forward and completely trust God with such confidence. And, he asks his disciples to do the same. Trust in me. Don't worry about dying. And actually, isn't that interesting? That as Christians, we're called to be different. We're called to be a distinctive people. And actually, I think that's one thing which we can really have that kind of uniqueness about us. That actually, we don't need to fear death, because we do know that we're going to be with the Father when we die, and that Jesus has prepared a place for us. There's a huge taboo about death, isn't there, in our society? That we're sort of, we're sold just relentlessly through marketing and through advertising that that we are going to live forever. That's kind of the message underlying it all, isn't it? Whereas of course we know that the only unavoidable things are death and taxes. We do know that, but actually we're not sold that story at all. But actually we can know a real peace, and the reason why we can know a real peace, Jesus points to himself. I just thought it would be quite interesting. I'm just going to just kind of go back to the passage, and I want you to count just on the first page, how many times does he say I or me? Because Jesus kind of points to himself. So here, so if you just read that page just very quickly to yourselves and count the number of times he says I or me. Yeah, I think if you count the I's and the me's, and it's a couple more than that, isn't it? But I mean, the point is that he constantly points to himself. He's look at me, keep your eyes fixed on me. You know, that there's nowhere else to be. He's calling us to do that. And then the fourth thing, just from this passage, which I thought was really interesting, is Jesus, Philip says, show us the Father. But Jesus says, no. If you've seen me, then you've seen the Father. The Father and Jesus are one. It is God who is walking on the earth. It's not, a lot of people think that Jesus was just a man. And obviously that was the case then. They just thought he was Joseph's son, the carpenter's son. And actually that's true for now, isn't it? That, people, when you talk about Jesus, oh right, he was a man who lived in Palestine. But actually, no, he was fully man, but he was fully God. And actually the awesomeness of that, of just kind of almost re-realising, and we do know that as Christians, isn't it? But actually when you stop to think about it, you think, this was God come to be with us and walk with us. I mean, how amazing is that? And, that's, if anybody says, how can you be so peaceful around thinking about death? How can you know that trust, in God? And it's like, because of Jesus, because he was God on the earth, and he said, look at me, look at me. So then what we've got in this amazing passage is one of the great I am statements, isn't it? I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now, does anybody know how many I am statements there were in John? 7. Can anybody name them?
I am the bread of life.
I'm the bread of life.
Good shepherd.
Good shepherd.
I'm the true vine. The dawn.
True vine.
I am the resurrection.
Yes.
The way, the truth, the life.
Way, truth, the life. I think somebody said one of the others. Sorry? The door.
Light of the world.
Light of the world. Very good, church. Fantastic. Yeah, so, I love these I am statements. So there were 7 of them. In John, there are like these patterns of 7 all the way through John, because 7 was like the symbol, the number of perfection. So all the way through, there were these, John wrote his gospel with such beauty, actually. For something which was written like 2,000 years ago, there was such literary skill in this text. It's amazing to kind of to look into it and kind of unfold it a little bit. So, for example, there's the patterns of 7. Like he had the gospel is kind of in 7 sections. He has 7 meetings with 7 different women. 7 times he says, "My hour has come." There's all these patterns, these resonances within it. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And then that looks back to when Moses. Do you remember when Moses first met God and he says, "Who are you?" And God says, "I am who I am." So whenever Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, the life," or "I am the bread of life," he is looking back to Yahweh, to the beginning, saying this is the same God all the way through the Bible. And actually, it's because Jesus kind of equates himself with "I am who I am" through these sayings. That's why the authorities are so, who is this man who is claiming to be God? But he is. He says, "I am, I am the way, the truth, the life."
And this is why he turned around and said, "I can build my father's house within 3 days." Absolutely,
yeah. So, first of all, just looking at the ways. How much time have I got? Not long. Okay, I'm going to whiz through these. Okay, so I'm the way. So first of all, he basically addressed our really human instinct to know where we want to go. We all want, if we're starting off on a journey. I remember as a kid, I was always like, "Where are we going?" And my parents, I think, it got to such a stage where they just wouldn't tell me anymore because I was such a pain in the car. But we want to turn on the sat nav. We want to know where the destination is. But Jesus makes it really clear that for us, we may not always know the destination. But actually, he says that if we travel the road with him, then he will give us that peace along the way. The other meaning is that he is the way to the Father. So actually, if you want to know the Father, then it's through Jesus. So the next one, Jesus, the truth. I don't know whether you picked up on this resonance at all, but when Jesus is before Pilate, just as he's going to be put to death, Pilate says to him, "What is truth?" Isn't that interesting? Because it's a question that keeps so many from people from faith today is, what is truth? Is Jesus the truth? You know, this claim, you know, we may know occasionally that we can tell the truth, but I don't think any of us would ever claim to be the truth. If I ever heard one of you claiming to, I am the truth, then frankly, I would go, yes, dear. Probably in my head, I probably would say it out loud, but it might raise questions in my head going, oh, you think you're the truth? No. Matt, pastoral issue. So, yeah, you know, but Jesus, he doesn't say what the truth is, he just says he is the truth, which is amazing, isn't it? And then he says, I am the life. So he says elsewhere in John 10, I've come that they may have, or that we may have life and have it to the full. So he's saying that not only in this life, if we follow Jesus, that we will have a fuller, more meaningful, more purposeful life. But actually, also that other meaning is that when we die, we will have eternal life with the Father. I don't know whether some of you remember that Michael Williams came to our pastorate probably about a year ago, I suppose it was, Matt, wasn't it? And he'd written a book for his congregation called Dying to Get There. And it was all about death and dying, partly because 3 people, I think, or 3 or 4 people had died within their congregation within quite a short period of time. And he realised, and the church was really rocked by it, and he wrote this book basically to help them, because he realised that actually that as a lot of us as Christians don't have the kind of the faith that the early church had. So in Colossians, Paul commends them and says, we've heard of your faith in Christ Jesus and of the love you have for all the saints. The faith and love that spring from the hope that is stored up for you in heaven and that you've already heard about in the word of truth. You know, the early church had a really strong assurance and sense of where they were going, that actually it wasn't just a current earthly hope, but actually, you know, they were suffering persecution, they were really suffering for their faith. And so actually just that knowledge that there was a treasure stored up for them in heaven was really, really important to them. And you know, there was that real sense in the early church. I mean, something like Stephen, who was martyred, obviously, it makes a point, the scriptures are saying that he wasn't fearful when he died. He looked up to heaven and saw the heavens opened and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. Paul, to live is Christ, to die is gain. You know, he was actually torn between wanting to stay and continue his work, but also to be with Jesus as well. Isn't that comforting? Just to actually, you know, these people had real confidence of where they were going. You know, in this life, I've heard it said before that, you know, in this life it's the worst it's going to get. You know, when we go to the next life to be with Jesus, that's going to be amazing. That's the best it's going to be. You know, I thought it was very helpful that certainly in my Bible, and I've got this is from the New Living Translation, but in the NIV version, the title of that little section is Jesus Comforts His Disciples. And actually, hopefully, you have drawn some comfort from it. And actually it's really helpful to live with that perspective of just knowing that we can have peace, because often we try not to think about dying and death, don't we? Because, you know, it can be a sad thing to think about, but actually if we can process it a little bit and then just say, yes, I know where I'm going to go, and then we can put it to one side and then we can live to the full in the present and enjoy what God has got for us here and live life to the full, because that's why Jesus came to you know, for us to live life to the full. So, you know, I'm just going to finish by saying that Jesus isn't just somebody who randomly pops up in our services from time to time. He is the heart of everything we say and do. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And I'm not going to pray now, but I'm just going to leave you with that and just literally have a couple of minutes of silence and just let that truth, let you sit with that truth and let God speak to you through it. And then when the appropriate time is coming, Dave can come up and just start the next song. But if we just have a couple of minutes of silence. Lord, you are the way, the truth, and the life.